He's such a pain. When he needs something for Kentucky, like money, like aid, like he wants me to call one of the many manufacturers now that are coming into Kentucky, could you call the head of some company in Japan, please? I say, Matt, do I have to do it? Please, please. But isn't that really what you wanted, a governor? I mean, really. That's what you want. He's such a pain in the ass, but that's what you want.
That was President Trump at a rally in Lexington, Kentucky Monday night, showing his support for the state's Republican Governor Matt Bevin. He's running for re-election, and some of the first polls for the highly contested governor's race will close in just a few minutes. Bevin is facing off against Democrat Andy Beshear. Polls going into Election Day showed the two men neck and neck. If Bevin wins, he will become the first Republican governor to win a second term in Kentucky. Daniel Desrochers was at the rally last night. He is a reporter for the Lexington Herald-Leader and joins me now. Thank you so much for being with us. Last night, President Trump held a rally for Bevin. Is Bevin relying on the president's popularity to pull him through the race?
Yeah, I think the governor is absolutely relying on the president's popularity. So Trump won Kentucky by almost 30 points back in 2016, and Bevin has been kind of unpopular through his first term in office, largely because of comments that he's made about teachers during his battle to kind of reform the pension system here in Kentucky. So he's kind of hoping that, that support for Trump, the fact that a lot of Kentuckians still really like the president, will help and be transferred over to him. The test tonight is, of course, going to be whether or not that transfers for a candidate who people have pretty set opinions on and who people are pretty unhappy with.
Well, Governor Bevin has been lobbying for Medicaid work requirements. How would that impact Kentuckians?
So I think it certainly impacts Kentuckians, right? So he's got a waiver that is pending before federal court right now. And Andy Beshear, his Democratic opponent, has been trying to make an issue of that in the race. He's talked a lot about the governor's attempts to kind of take away some of these Medicaid support for people. But at the same time, that's one aspect of the campaign, but we haven't seen it be kind of a central thing like we had in 2018 when healthcare was such a big issue in the race. It's really been kind of this, undercurrent throughout the race where, the social issues or education or even just the governor's demeanor in general have kind of taken center stage over stuff like healthcare.
So Republicans want to make this election a referendum on impeachment. What is driving voters to the polls, national or local issues?
So, we're definitely going to find that out tonight. I think that it's really tough to say that this election is a referendum on impeachment just because of how unique the governor is, right? If, this were a generic Republican in Kentucky, he'd be winning by way, way, way more. The fact that it's a close race is really about Matt Bevin, and it's not really about those national issues. I think we're going to see a test of whether or not, the impeachment thing has been going on in Washington, D.C. When you talk to voters who are at these Bevin rallies, they're not necessarily happy about impeachment, but it's not really the first thing that's on their mind. They've been talking a lot more about the social issues like abortion, or they've been talking about the economy. It's something that's in the background again, but people here already support Donald Trump. And so if they already support Donald Trump, the impeachment issue isn't going to be necessarily the thing that drives them to the polls.
Well, in the past 50 years, Kentucky has had 8 Democratic governors compared to just 3 Republican governors. How do Kentuckians tend to lean when it comes to these kind of elections?
Yeah, so Kentucky for a long time was kind of the last vestige in the South for the Democratic Party. But, when you look at statewide elections, particularly in, since 2000, it has flipped. And so, the leaning is certainly Republican. The last time that a Democrat won, it was in 2007. Steve Beshear won in 2007. It was because the Republican governor was, a part of I think he had just been indicted by the attorney general. And so, and then Steve Beshear won re-election. So it's a little misleading to kind of look at the history with Democrats and Republicans in the governor's office, because, we've certainly seen this trend where Kentucky is conservative.
So as someone who's been on this campaign trail from the very beginning, what do you think will be the deciding factor in this race?
So I think the race really comes down to how many people the governor has angered and how angry they are, right?
Help
Are
me
they
to
angry
understand
enough?
that, Daniel, because I think people might not, people outside Kentucky might not sort of understand how there could be that level of animus. It's even among some Republicans, is what I understand. He's not a coalition builder, to put it mildly.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So he went after public education, right? He went after teacher groups. And in doing so, when you look at these rural counties, the education system is the largest employer in these rural counties, right? So he has certainly not made any friends. And so, when that has happened, it just kind of undermined him completely. He said things like, when the teachers protested in Frankfurt, he said that he guaranteed that a child was sexually assaulted. He accused teachers who were protesting a business of having a thug-like mentality. He's gone after judges by calling them partisan hacks. He's gone after reporters. He called one veteran reporter a peeping Tom because his name was Tom Loftus. He's just, he even went after the Senate president, the Republican Senate president, after in an open letter saying that the Republican Senate president didn't understand how legislation works. So he has not made friends. And so, it's a matter of whether or not these conservative values override how angry people are at him, right? When I talk to Republican voters, some of them have said, actions speak louder than words. We really support, the types of things that he's done. But others have just said, I really don't like this guy. And so I'm going to have a hard time deciding on election day. And that comes down to, do people stay home? Do they skip the governor's race when they go to the ballot box? Do they switch over their vote to Beshear? Or do they just kind of suck it up and vote for the Republican because his values match with them much better than Beshear's values?
All right, Daniel Desrochers. Thank you so much, Daniel, for giving us that complete look at the landscape there in Kentucky. Fascinating dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me.